Hello there, my name is Molly Taylor and I have chosen to research the topic of screen time and our children. I have chosen to focus on this project as I believe the research will benefit both parents and children. The research I have found is mainly focused on the negative health impacts of screen time as well as the positive educational factors that are involved. Before I do review these factors, I found some helpful technology guidelines in regard to education and the health of children given by the RAND Corporation. Those guidelines are: is it purposely integrated to support learning? Is the use solitary or taking place with others? Is the activity sedentary or mobile? What are the content and features of the media? Are the device's features age appropriate? What is the total screen time involved? Health and screen time have been a concern for some time now, and the following has been said about some background use trends in ages infant to 8 years old. Children 3 to 5 years spend an average of 2 hours per day in front of screens, while only 15% of preschoolers met current Canadian sedentary behavior guidelines for the early years, which recommend limiting screen time to less than 1 hour per day. Also, TV still does dominate total screen time and appears to be increasing for this age group. Many preschoolers accumulate screen time at home and in childcare from a variety of screens that are easily transportable. In the USA, rates of mobile media use among 2 to 4 year olds increases from 39 to 80% between 2011 and 2013. A recent UK study had found that about 51% of infants 6 to 11 months old use a touchscreen daily. This information came from the Canadian Pediatric Society, but I believe it is applicable to our American guidelines and our American children as well. The Canadian Pediatric Society has also mentioned that screen time overexposure in early life is associated with overuse in later life. Among 14 to 17-year-olds, high users of screens 7 or more hours per day versus 1 hour per day were more than twice as likely to have ever been diagnosed with depression, ever diagnosed with anxiety, treated by a medical health professional, or have taken medication for a psychological or behavioral issue in the past 12 months. Moderate use of screens, 4 hours per day, was also associated with lower psychological well-being. This information is key to building a bigger picture of how exactly the screens could affect us. Pertaining to the psychological well-being, film producers have been trying to create awareness on the dangers of screen use at an impressionable age through films such as Unfriended and Megan is Missing. In both films, social media is used to connect with others, and those connections turn sour and life-threatening. Now, turning away from the health aspects, I will now discuss the educational benefit to screen time. The Lee County School System notes several benefits to the implementation of Chromebooks and their school system. Those benefits are listed from their official website, which are simplicity, low cost, performance, reliability, simple support and maintenance, long battery life, and compatibility. The rest of these benefits have come from my own personal research in the form of a survey. I asked members of a mom group that I am in 2 statements, and they were to reply with yes, no, or neutral. Their information was kept anonymous, and messages were deleted upon their being read. This was done in a virtual environment due to the COVID-19 issues we are all facing, and while I have liked to have gotten more in-depth data, I did not feel it was safe or possible at this time. The first statement was not a benefit for screen time, but rather the opposite. The first statement read, "My child is in front of a screen too much now between personal home screen time and screen time usage during school." From that statement, the following were the responses. For the yes, there was 27. For the no, there was 8. And for the neutral, there was 1. The second statement was, "My child's education has expanded greatly since the implementation of Chromebooks." From this statement were the following responses. Yes, 23. No, 10, and neutral, 3. This statement and its responses were a win for the use of tech in schools. Both of these responses had met my expectations and surprised me at the same time. Parents seem to be in agreement that our children and students are in front of screens often too much throughout the day. This is backed up by my overwhelming yes responses compared to the no and neutral responses. While we agree that kids are in front of screens too much, we do have the ability to control it somewhat. Our children are out of our control at school, but we can set restrictions to how long they are watching television, playing games, or on social media at home. Conclusively, if we do not control the amount of screen time our children participate in, then they could potentially face health effects as previously mentioned. The second statement of, my child's education has expanded greatly since the implementation of Chromebooks, has met my expectations in that children's educations have expanded thanks to the use of Chromebooks. Students have the world at their fingertips in the form of the internet, and the availability of that information can help them with their research, help them write a paper, help facilitate communication between class and the teacher. And I know many teachers are using Google Classroom for their students and can post class updates and important information for them to see. This can be essential in times like today where we are forced to use virtual schooling due to COVID-19, of which is currently taking place in our homes today. In the PowerPoint that I have created, I have broken it up into perceived pros and cons about tech, research pros and cons about tech, my own findings, and a brief conclusion to my findings. In the perceived pros and cons, I thought it was an important category to create because we all do have different opinions about tech use, both good and bad. An interesting bit that is my own perceived pros and cons about tech are not too off from the research pros and cons. In regard to my own research, I laid out two statements, which are, my child is in front of a screen too much now between personal time and screen usage during school, and my child's education has expanded greatly since the implementation of Chromebooks. Both statements had overwhelming yes responses, close to the same amount of no responses, and minimal neutral responses. While I only had 36 participants, I believe that the numbers I collect would have reflected the same in a larger scale. Tech is the future, but at what cost? Thank you.